Hello everyone, welcome to the video. Today we are going to build a recursive web crawler and do a bit of web scraping simultaneously in Python using a very nifty library called requests HTML. Also, we are going to use Asyncio in order to improve the performance of the code. For the purpose of this video, I will keep things very simple. So, let's start coding. The first thing we need to do is import the HTML session module from the library. So let's say from requests HTML, import the HTML session. Of course, let's create our main function. And let's define the initial URL, which would be this one. Now, the reason I'm using this URL is because I used it at work. I did a bit of web scraping at work, so it's a real life example. Now let's call our main function URL, and let's define our main function here, which is the URL. And now we need to create an HTML session. So let's say session HTML session. So now we need to create our recursive function, right? So let's do that. Here we need to pass the URL and the session, of course. Let's define the recursive function URL and session. And the first thing we need to do here is create a request and get the content from the URL, right? So let's say our session get URL. Now there is this very cool feature that is provided by the library, which provides you all the absolute links on a web page. So if we do a print here and you type r.html.absolute links, then we can see it provides us a list with all the absolute links it could find on the web page. We can iterate through this list and start crawling, right? So for link in our HTML, absolute links let's say if we need to keep track of the URLs we have already visited, right? So we don't want to visit the same URLs twice or 3 times or more. So we need to define a list here. So we define a list here, visited links, and we say if link not in visited links. So if we haven't visited this link, then we append it to the list, right? We append this link to the list. As we said before, this crawl function would be a recursive function. That means we have to call it from inside the function here, but this time not with the URL, but with the link. And the reason we are doing that is because we want to keep crawling as long as we get new links, right? So we can do a print here and we can see all the links we are iterating through. As you see here, we are iterating through all these absolute links, right? As you can see on my terminal, we are crawling external websites. We are no longer on the gov.uk domain. But let's say for the purpose of this video, we want to stay on the gov.uk domain and also our links to contain a specific word. We can do that by creating a list with all the keywords we want to be in the link, right? So let's say we want to stay in the same domain as we said, so we need to have gov.uk, and let's say we need the MOT word to be included in that link. So we need an extra condition in the if statement, and we can achieve that by using what we have and we have to loop through the keywords. So for keyword in keywords, if keyword in link. So we check for that the keyword is in the link, right? So we loop through the keywords, we check if that keyword is on the link, and we also need the all here. That means that all the words here in that list are in the link, can be found in the link. If we save and run this, you will see that all the websites we are crawling here have this gov.uk domain, and also the word MOT is included as well. So now let's say we're going to stop crawling as soon as we have visited 5 valid URLs. And we can do that by adding another if statement here and say if the length of the list greater and equals to 5, then break. Let's say we can print the visited. Let's print the visited URLs here in the main function and see, and remove this print here, it's unnecessary, and save and run. And we are getting 5 URLs here, right? We can also do a bit of web scraping simultaneously and count the number of occurrences of a specific HTML tag that contains a certain word. In order to do that, we need an extra function. So let's call this function here def and scrape. Let's call it scrape, and we need the request. So let's call it from here, and we need scrape, and we pass the request here. So in order to do that, we need to use the find function of the library provided by the requests HTML library, which is a very cool feature. Okay, so now let's find all the paragraphs that contain the MOT word, and we can do that by this command request HTML dot find. We need to define here the HTML tag, which is a paragraph in this case, and here there is a keyword containing the MOT word. Now we are going to get a list of all the paragraphs containing the MOT keyword, right? And to do that, we are going to create a counter, which would be a global counter. Unfortunately, it's not always the right thing to do, but here it's very convenient. So we define that as global, and we increase the counter. Come on. And based on the length of this list. So here we call this scrape function, and we can also print the counter here in the main function and check the results. You can see it found 25 paragraphs containing the MOT word, which is quite cool, you know, just a few lines of code. You don't do much. That's great results, I believe. You should try that. We are going to check the performance now, but this time instead of using one URL here, we are going to use a list of URLs. So we will start crawling from multiple initial URLs. So let's remove this one and provide a list. There are very similar URLs here, as you can see, doesn't really make any sense, but we are using them just to test the performance, right? So here we pass a list this time. We need to keep track of the time, so we need the import to import the time module, and here we need to start, keep track of the time, counter here, and then we need a for loop for all the URLs here in the list, then call the crawl function, right? And then we need, let's remove that, and then we need end time, which is time ref counter, and then we need to print, and let's say the start time, finish time is end minus start, and we can check the time now. Let's check. So that took about 2 seconds, 2.6 seconds, right? We can improve this performance by using Asyncio. So let's import Asyncio, and then we can start crawling from multiple websites simultaneously, and that would increase the performance. So first of all, here, if you're using Windows, we have to set the event loop policy. It's a bit tricky here, so Asyncio dot set event loop policy. If you're on Windows, Asyncio dot Windows select event loop policy, and then we need to type Asyncio dot run, and so we can run the main function. And here we need the async word in all the functions. Async, right? Now the requests HTML library provides an asynchronous session as well, so which is very convenient. And let's import that. Async HTML session instead of the typical HTML session. Let's use that. Now we can create tasks and start crawling from multiple websites at the same time. So first of all, let's remove that because we need to create tasks now. So we need a list tasks, and let's say for URL in URLs, call the crawl function and pass the URL and the session, and then we need to type await asyncio.gather and unpack the tasks. Right here we need the await keyword in order to let Asyncio run the tasks, complete all the tasks, and then gather the results. So when we are using Asyncio and when you are call an async function, then you need the await keyword. So you wait for the result for the task to be completed, right? So here we need to add the await keyword here in front of the session, because as we said, this is now an asynchronous session, and also this scrape function is an async function now, so we need the await keyword here, and here when we are calling the crawl function again, this recursive loop. So if we save here and run, you will notice it will take less than half of the initial time, so it will take 0.8 seconds, and initially it took 2 point something, right? So you can use Asyncio in order to improve performance and run tasks almost simultaneously, instead of using, let's say, multi-threading or multi-processing. I'm going to wrap up this video by saying that the requests HTML library is a great library, and it also gives you the asynchronous option. It is very handy. It saves you a lot of time instead of doing all this manually. That is it for now. Thank you for watching, and until the next time, have a good one.